Star Trek, the ultimate franchise. These are the voyages of 3 veteran Trekkies, Rich, Ian, and Toby. Their ongoing mission? To explore the vast Star Trek universe, to seek out new perspectives and fresh debates, to boldly go where no podcast has gone before. Beyond the final frontier.
Happy New Year! Welcome
Happy New Year, everyone.
The Final Frontier.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Everyone's chiming in. It's 2026, which is an important year for Star Trek because, of course, it marks the 60th anniversary. No one can see your sarcastic facial expressions there, Ian.
They must have heard it.
I thought you were going to say because Starfleet Academy starts.
Well, yeah, exactly. It's going to be an exciting year for Star Trek. Lots of things. It's going to be lots of stuff to monitor. And we will ponder ourselves how we mark it specifically. But hopefully everyone will get to indulge their passion for Star Trek across the entire year. Certainly my main expression of celebration will be at Star Trek Las Vegas in August, which will be my first time, which will be exciting. So Happy New Year. And what better way to start a new year than to talk about episodes that make us cry.
Ooh.
This episode's theme came from a listener, Steve, who emailed us to know which Star Trek episodes make us cry. And alarmingly, there's quite a lot, isn't there?
Yes.
So I'm just going to say, I actually found this very difficult because, as I previously mentioned, I don't cry easily.
Because you're a cold-hearted bastard. Remember, we've discussed that.
That is true. And so I really had to scrape around for episodes that have that emotional impact on me. But I managed to get 7 at least.
Well, whereas I had a long list. How long is my long list? I've got it in front of me. My long list is like 25 episodes that made me cry. And I'm also aware of where, I'm sure you guys are the same, that there is some tendency to some repetition with certain episodes always cropping up. So I have not included a couple of things in my 7 because we've talked about them at length. So like City on the Edge of Forever isn't in mine. Duet, The Visitor, some which did make me cry, but we've talked about them recently or quite a lot. It's okay if everyone's included them, but
I should just say that I've also included the films.
Right, okay. I haven't included the films.
Right.
That wasn't the assignment. When the teacher gives you an assignment, you're supposed to follow the assignment. It's going to be Kirk and Spock in the containment.
I really struggled. Struggled.
Yeah, because otherwise, then it's just, it's Rathkar.
Right.
I will follow the normal protocol and I will kick off. My number 7 is Sarek from The Next Generation, which is just a masterclass in the loss of dignity that can come with age and dementia and the struggles that parents have with their children and having to function when you're going through an emotional crisis, with just some really superb acting from Mark Leonard, and also I think one of the best acting episodes for Patrick Stewart when he takes on Sarek. They mind meld and Picard takes on Sarek's negative emotions, his sadness, his anger, so that Sarek can go into these negotiations to be his true, logical, unfettered self. And it's just so, the acting is so, from both of them, is just so moving, and it's just deeply tragic to see a character which it's been in Star Trek for a long time, very long time, and we've been trained to love and respect, and that they're even with it as an emotionless Vulcan, there was the way he reacted to Spock's death in Search of Spock, and then seen again in 4 and 6, he became a benevolent paternal figure within the sort of Star Trek lore. So to see him disintegrating due to the Bendy syndrome, is it Bendy or Bendii? It's just yeah. I don't watch it very often because I just find it so sad. And I cried twice. I cried when Sarek really loses it, and then again when watching Patrick Stewart having to goes through all those intense negative emotions. And yeah, so for me, it's a brilliant episode.
I mean, I think that the thing with that episode, it works because it is Sarek. Like, if that had just been like a guest character, then you wouldn't have that connection. I wonder how people coming into TNG for the first time, how they would react to that episode, having, say, they'd never seen the original series or the movies, whether it would have a similar impact.
Yeah, I'd be curious too. I don't know. I mean, even though I'm, of course, was introduced to Sarek in the movies first and then saw him in the original series later. But even that...
I mean, he's barely in the original series.
He is, but he is
two
there.
Episodes, right?
Yeah, but that's just that resonance, though. It's an interesting case in point. There's been lots of additions to Spock's family, haven't there? But the ones which were the original ones, so Amanda and Sarek, have far more power because they don't feel like they've been engineered just for the plot. So this is where case in point. They could have done any Vulcan in this storyline.
Well, the funny thing is, when you actually think about it, they were engineered for the plots. It's just 60 years ago, and it gains the nostalgia factor and
That's
the
true.
OG factor as a result of that. But
yeah,
to your
it's
point,
it's not the same as, oh look, Spock's got a half brother who is going to steal the ship.
Right.
It's not.
It's not retconning is the difference. Yeah, I totally agree with you.
Yeah. So. Yeah, and so the same way that all the deaths in 2009 reboot also have a bit more resonance because of who they are, and it's not. And that was what made, I think, from the offset, the introduction of Michael Burnham was difficult because of that very dynamic, and often felt like it, as we've often said, didn't earn the emotion that they were trying to elicit by having her related to Spock family. But yeah, so number 7 for me, Sarek.
Did you, Ian? Did you ever interview Mark Leonard?
Yes, and I will tell you.
Did he talk about this episode?
No. Mark Leonard was one of the very first interviews I ever did. He spoke to me for my college newspaper and took the time to talk to some kid he'd never met. And so I've always been grateful to him for that. And then when I did my Star Trek column, whatever that was, 12, 15 years later, when I was making my living as a professional journalist, I spoke to him again as well for the Next Generation. And he wasn't a warm and fuzzy man. He was very direct. And that's part of why I find he's very well cast, but the emotion is there.
And it's the difference between public persona and personal persona.
Of course.
In that was a sentimental person, which you maybe wouldn't have realised that. Like when you said that he was kind of quite, a cold person to interview.
Well, I think he's probably also a classic example of that generation's sense of masculinity as well as being...
I think he was just no nonsense, and he also just had that stoic look. That's why he got cast in a lot of these commanding roles. He was was he a general in Planet of the Apes? He was commanding in that. Really strong actor. I was always impressed with his work, actually.
It's great. And
all right, my number 7 is I'm gonna go with a couple of ties, as I usually do, because I just can't pick. Wow, ladies and gentlemen, if you could just see Toby's eyes roll to the back of his head. What a surprise. And it took about 30 seconds for them to come back to the front. Wow. All right, I'm going with 2 Doctor episodes. One, real life, the Doctor for Voyager, what it means to be human and to experience true loss. Bob Picardo was excellent in this episode, as always, but really got to give us a sense of the character here, what he gets to experience, what he doesn't get to experience, what he wants to experience. It was there are other episodes with the Doctor that kind of fall into this realm, but in terms of tearjerker, this is the one for me, and I would call it a tie with the Elysian Kingdom from Strange New Worlds. I thought that was a nice, revealing episode for Mbenga that we really hadn't had before and that we really haven't had after, and I just think the character needed some development. And this was an interesting way to do it. I thought the whole thing with the child was very effective. The little girl was fabulous. The chemistry between them as actors was terrific. And so those would be my 2 for number 7.
It's one of Strange New World's best sci-fi ideas as well.
Also, absolutely.
Admittedly, still, as we've talked about before, on the ship rather than exploring, but an interesting transporter.
I don't mind when they explore characters versus explore space. I do, my main criticism of Strange New Worlds is let's go explore. But I'll take a good character episode anytime.
Yeah. Yeah, and Mbenga is, I think, one of the strongest new characters on Strange New Worlds because of all of this, for sure. Toby.
My 7th pick, and I would be surprised if either of you have picked this one, is Next Generation episode from season 6, Dark Page.
No, interesting.
I'm not the biggest
Try
fan
episode.
of the... Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of the Luoxana character. I don't think it never really worked for me. It was nothing to do with Major Barrett. I just, she was written to be irritating, and
She did it very well.
she did do it very well. But because of that reason, I find a lot of her episodes irritating.
Yeah, understandable.
But this one, I think, is emotional, and I think her breakdown, particularly at the end, I think she does really well in it. It feels really heartfelt, and I don't have children. I can only imagine what it's like to lose a child, and I think Majel does a really good job of communicating that. And I think the ending is actually also hopeful rather than mournful, and that's partly due to how Deanna reacts, in that she just wants to know the sister that she never knew, Kestra. It's a story about acceptance of something horrific where no one is at fault. It's just something that has happened. And I think that this episode, in retrospect, there's extra resonance when you think about Troy and Riker losing their own child.
That's a very good point now, yeah.
I'd just like to say, as a side note, the casting of Marquess, I think is the character, Norman Large, is excellent because he's just weird and creepy looking, and it brings that extra element. It's a really good misdirect. Are they the villain? Is he the villain? Has he done something to Roxana's mind? And also notable, obviously, is Kirsten Dunst's pre-interview with the vampire, although she'd been on various things before that.
With some nice appliances.
Indeed.
Cool. That's interesting. Well, my she didn't make it onto the list, but I'm more fond of Roxana than a lot of people.
Me too.
Because Magel's just so great. And the thing I really like is exactly what you said, which is it's a bit like what they did with Q sometimes, which is she's annoying, and then bam, they come out with something. And my favourite one is the one with Odo, where when they're stuck in the lift and she cradles Odo's liquid form in her dress and things like that. And I just find that incredibly moving. And yeah, so it's a great episode, Dark Page, and it's a good one for Marina as well.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah, she's really good in it, and it's really well shot by Les Landau, and the whole dream sequence stuff. I think it maybe suffered at the time because it came immediately after the Data Dream episode.
Right. Yeah,
what was that called?
Oh yes, it's the one with
Phantasms.
The Marina cake.
Yeah,
the peptide cake. Yes, yes.
That's why I always remember that one. Don't know why. Freud would probably have something to tell me.
Toby, good choice, man. Good choice.
Yeah. So my number 6 is Next Generation. Is Lower Decks. So not the cartoon series, the absolutely brilliant and very funny, mostly, episode about the junior officers, which includes the Bajoran ensign Sito, is it Jaxa? Yeah. Who was in the part of the Red Squadron that killed that kid with Wesley Crusher and Robert Duncan McNeil.
The First Duty.
First Duty, thank you. And she...
This is in my list, by the way, but it's
okay.
Much higher.
It is all the more affecting because the episode's quite light. And it's a very expert piece of recalling a callback to a character. And so you've got this light, fun episode exploration of what it's like to not be one of the main characters on Star Trek, and there's fun interactions. And you've got a slow burn, B-plot, essentially, about her and Picard giving her a hard time, and then it leading to this special covert mission, and she dies. And it's a real gut punch. Even though essentially it's a commentary on red shirts in many ways, the unimportant characters, even though she was a bit more than that, obviously, but it was an interesting construct, and it's not a ugly cry episode. You're not there going, but tears roll, and it's just deeply sad, and you feel the loss of talent and how, in a strange way, because Picard was able to overcome her initial acts and give her a second chance and champion her, and for it to end that way is both obviously sad at the loss of life, but also for the loss of potential and the loss of that connection. And it reminded me as well of the Ro Laren situation.
Mm-hmm.
and how Picard goes through that with her, and it's whereas obviously the loss of Ro is metaphorical in the sense that she goes to the Marquis and they lose her from Starfleet. This is very literal, and also it is the first time I feel like we've really handled a crew death since Skin of Evil with Tasha. There have been others or other crises of bigger scale, but it's that particular mundane through the course of duty loss. Yes, it was a mission, but it was through her doing her job.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that made it particularly sad for me. And it's just a great episode. This is one of those episodes, it was always good, but the further away you get from it, from when it first aired, how brilliant this is. How it's understated and it's not flashy, but it is absolutely superbly written, acted, directed. Everything is great in this episode. And it's, yes, just deeply sad.
What they do really well in this, and I might as well talk about it now, but this is in my second spot, because this one really is one of the few episodes where I do get very emotional at, is they do a brilliant job of building empathy for that character, in that when Picard has a go at her, you actually really feel for her, and they've done that through the characterization with the other lower deckers. It's really, really well done, and you've got the whole mentorship through Worf and how he's protecting her, and so the sacrifice at the end feels painful, and I love the way that it's sort of done, in that it's sort of the reactions of the friends. You hear Picard start to speak, and then it cuts to his voice, and it's just very, very touching. But it's also that they then have to have the fortitude to go on, because if nothing else, that it's honouring her memory and her bravery and her sacrifice, and I think that's the thing that gets me. I mean, I've spoken about this episode a lot.
Yeah,
well, let me comment on that. Let me comment on that episode for a second. It's not on my list, actually. It's touching. I get it, but it's the same issue that I had with the episode of Discovery in which they killed Arya, in that we barely got to know these characters, and then we dispatch them, and they're asking you to cry. I thought it wasn't. My big thing is I like my tears to be earned, and that just felt a little forced to me. I
agree with that. I think they earn it, but
yeah. Well, that's why Baskin Robbins has 31 flavors. Everybody likes something different.
You're a cold-hearted bastard until it hits you, and then you will defend it to the death.
Absolutely.
I get what you're saying. I thought it was beautifully done. I just it affected me. It didn't. It's not a tearjerker for me. Let's put it that way. Whereas my number 6,
nice segue,
is going to be much higher on my list than I'm guessing it might be on yours. I could be wrong, but my number 6 is Mortal Coil.
Okay.
Now there's one where I thought they earned it. Okay. People love to hate on Neelix, but yet so many people are deeply affected by this episode. So what does that tell me, at least? That it's a tribute to Ethan Phillips and his performance. It's a tribute to the writing. And guess what? It's a tribute to Neelix. Somewhere deep down in our cold Grinch-like hearts, anybody who thought that Neelix was not a good or useful character within the context of the show, the little creepy bastard touched hearts. It was always the strange character to me, but I always enjoyed the character in my own little way. I just felt bad that in terms of the show, what was he? You know what I mean? Again, we never knew what his job was. He had 62 different jobs.
I think they wanted him to be Quark.
He was the comedy foil, really.
Yeah, and I don't think they ever managed to really find a spot for the character on the ship. But that said, I thought Ethan Phillips sold it. And when we got to Mortal Coil, hey, again, we felt deeply for this character. And I just thought it was...
Some of us did.
Oh, cold-hearted motherfucking bastard.
This is not even anywhere close to my list.
It's on my long list. Mortal Coil is on my long list.
Is it number 25 or 24 on your long list?
It's in it. What do you want, more?
Anyway.
But we've reverted to form now. Toby, what's yours?
Well, that's a particularly nice segue into my 6th pick, because I think this is going to be controversial. If I was to say Monster or Brandy or Tyler, does that mean anything to any of you?
Monster or Brandy or Tyler?
Not immediately.
Right. I'll just leap straight to it. So,
Discovery?
My pick is it's the first film one, and it's the end of Generations. It's not the moment that you're thinking. So it's the discovery of Spot, played by Monster or Brandy or Tyler.
Christ, that! Oh God, if I could reach through and give you a slap.
So, I think the death of Kirk hits me, and it has an emotional impact, but it doesn't get me to that place. But it's the setup, the build-up to then the Data finding Spot scene, and I think it's one of those things that if you've ever had a beloved pet and they've been lost or in peril, and then you somehow discover them, I think it just captures that feeling really well. And you've had this whole build-up with Spot throughout Next Generation. You know how much Spot means to Data. That scene captures that for me. What does it say about me that I'm putting this ahead of the death of a legend and also the death of a child?
That George Lucas has your number. Famously, George Lucas said, if I want to make people cry, I'll snap a kitten's neck on camera. That would have worked for you.
The thing is, you know what this scene means. You know what this scene means to Data, and the fact that he's, just been introduced to emotions.
It was his first touchstone to exploring human emotion, was owning Spot.
So,
well,
there
if
you go.
you're going to go with Generations, I
me.
actually prefer Kirk's first death in Generations.
As do I. We agreed on that. I think it's much more suiting. And I just wish they could have, literally, whenever I watch Generations, it's one of those things, I watch the beginning and I go, why didn't you swap it round somehow? And have that happen? Have him have to do that? It would have worked. It's exciting. It's the best action sequence in the movie, is the beginning.
Yeah. So, whereas we disagree on that point, but as we talked about.
Yes, indeed. Well, we'll move on from the film that wasn't in the brief and the killing of a cat over killing of Kirk.
It's not killing of a cat, it's the discovery of it.
Oh, my. Yes.
It's the saving of a cat.
It's the saving
it's happy tears.
In my head, I clearly wanted Spock to die.
So did Brent Spiner.
Yeah, I know. He wasn't a fan, was he? Although wasn't his suggestion to give Data a cat, I think.
Well, yeah, I just
careful what you wish for.
Yeah. He's more like,
it could be a catastrophe.
Ripley. Yeah, he's more like Ripley. And you little shithead.
Well done.
So, my number 5 is the Elysium Kingdom. I always found the storyline between Mbenga and his daughter deeply upsetting and moving, and it really hit my parent buttons. And all you have to do with a storyline like that is just put yourself in their shoes once, and that's it. But also, it's one of the best. I think that's what we said earlier. I won't go over it too much, but it's a great sci-fi idea anyway, which makes it all the better. It's a great character exploration and deepens him, and it's just really, really tragic and sad, but hopeful at the end. And it's that sort of evolution. And funnily enough, because we were talking about Neelix, the way they do her going with the alien is what they kind of didn't get right with Kes. And whatever she did evolved into whatever she became, and it was interesting that this sort of felt like it learned from that. I don't know. They don't seem to always be that aware of canon, but yeah, for me it was a really sad, tragic, but ultimately hopeful. And then, of course, Mbenga seemed a bit lightened until we found out that he's a trained super assassin.
You like your hope in death situations?
Yeah.
I will say again, I know we're not talking about the movies here, but the Kirk Spock scene,
some of us are.
There is no hope in the death there. And that's partly why that scene is so emotional.
No, but they do end with the hope.
They do end with the hope, but in the moment, there's no hope.
Yeah, that's true.
He's gone, Jim, the whole thing.
Yeah.
So I always think of that episode as being like a fun fantasy adventure. I don't even really consider it as being sad.
So I didn't talk about it last time. This is what I remember from it. Primarily, it's this. I see it. There's a lot of frippery and fun, and but it's all about the end. It's all of the storybook. It's fun, but it is all about building to that moment. So that's why for me, yeah. Is that you?
All right, number 5 for me. I'm going with an Enterprise episode. Believe it or not, Terra Prime.
Okay.
Terra Prime is my number 2.
Really? I thought the end for T'Pol and Trip was moving, earned to a degree. Yeah. See, I wish we did have more time with them as a couple before this episode. I'm not fully convinced the show earned all of its pathos, but the chemistry between Jolene Blalock and Connor Trenier sold the relationship when they introduced it, and it provided the payoff that we needed in this episode. The episode as a whole is good. This portion of the episode I thought was A+. So that's why it's number 2, like you have it. But I think
I wept like I ugly cried at the end of this.
Really?
Yeah, I just found it was so. Yeah, again, it's that thing of just for a moment, I was in their shoes. That was it.
Good.
So
yeah. It
was my top 2 stick to that. Genuinely, the how much crying I did. The top 2 are the ones which really, yeah. So, but I completely agree. I think I can't argue with anything you just said about the episode itself. And I do wish, if anything had sort of oddly screamed to be a 2-parter, it was this. And it would, but then again, it'd probably be even more devastating if it had been. So maybe not. But yeah, I completely agree. I think for me, it's one of the finest acting moments in Enterprise, easily.
Tobes?
Yeah, that's a good pick. Wasn't on my list, but yeah. My 5th spot is an episode we've talked about before. It's Deep Space Nine, The Visitor, Season 4. I love this episode. I think it's one of Deep Space Nine's best. I find Old Man Jake's story just really, really moving, and the sacrifice he makes at the end. I'm not a huge fan of the reset button storytelling construct, but I think in this instance it's done very, very well. Whatever you think of the temporal displacement aspect of it, just what I think they did really, really well, and I think this was done on a rewrite, was that they made Old Man Jake, played by Tony Todd, they made that a story in itself. So it's not what's happening with Benjamin, it's what's being discussed between him and Melanie, played by Rachel Robinson, daughter of Andrew Robinson, and it's just very, very well done. It's a strong story. It's very moving. I don't cry at it, but it is one that, you know, does have an emotional impact on me. So I won't say much more about it because
no debate. It's on my long list, and it's just not on my list because it was. I talked about it recently.
It's higher up on mine. You know what? My style of doing this is obviously a little bit different from yours, Rich. I'm still going to include the episodes, even if we've discussed them, because they belong where they belong.
I think it's just totally fine. I think that's fair enough. Yeah. I just find it's just that thing of wanting. I suppose part of me wants to acknowledge where other episodes which might be not occur in my lists otherwise, if you see what I mean. But no, I think you're totally right. I mean, if I was a pure list, would have The Visitor, absolutely.
But I think we can all see where we're going here. That, you know, our most powerful episodes are going to be original series TNG, then maybe Deep Space Nine. So what I tried to do was, you know, include other shows here with things that move me. It's also another reason why I get stuck in my, let me give you my 6-way tie situation. But I make no apologies for that.
No, we are building up tie credit.
Yeah.
When I deploy a tie, it's going to be a big tie.
I almost can't wait. All right, number 4.
Okay, number 4 for me is Skin of Evil.
Really?
Yeah.
Nowhere near my list. Not even earned it.
No, this episode stuck with me. Maybe it was when I saw it, how old I was.
Let me guess, the monster scared you.
No. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know it was coming. I wasn't quite clued into the behind the scenes or anything like that. And I typically, it just felt like Tasha was growing on me more at this point in the series. And it changed the stakes. It changed the nature of the show. It made it suddenly feel less frivolous, like it could have gravitas and it could have real implications. And because it was so meaningless, I know some people, I've seen a lot of online recently, people saying that they don't like how offhand it is and it's just done. And whereas I think that's the strength of it entirely. Is it's like, oh shit, she's gone. And then the way
definitely shocking.
Yeah, and the way the crew deal with it, and in particular Data, and those later conversations and the hologram. So it's that thing of must have been 11, 12 maybe when I saw it, and I just started to become invested in Next Gen, just started to be won over and to accept it as Star Trek. And then this happened, and as a consequence, when I watched that episode, I I roll a tear because it's not really a strong intellectual one from that point of view. But the same way when you see something that makes you cry when you're young, often it still does. So yeah, it's just, and I also now when I watch it, I think about yesterday's Enterprise, and I think about Sealer, and I think about what could have been done with Denise Crosby more, and I sort of get sort of meta sadness for what didn't happen, as well as for the character. So there you go, Skin of Evil.
Well, comment, man.
Ian's shaking his head.
No, Ian doesn't agree with you, but you're allowed to be wrong. You're allowed to have your opinion. I'm going with Nepenthe. I can't believe it,
okay.
But Nepenthe is very powerful to me. Pure fan service nostalgia. Almost doesn't earn it within the context of the show. But here's why I like it. And we've discussed this before. We've got reunions, we've got nostalgia, it does actually move the plot forward quite a bit. We've got pizza. I thought it was an interesting episode for Picard and Soji. I think you guys know that I'm a really big fan of the actress who plays... You
love yourself some Soji.
I love Soji. I think Issa Briones is a terrific actress and one to really keep an eye on. She's great in The Pit. Now, we spoke about Kestra earlier, and I thought that Lulu Wilson did a terrific... This little girl, I mean, kind of broke hearts, and her scenes with Marina were lovely. We got the big hug between, Riker and Picard, and this scene in that idyllic place where they live reminded me of basically one of the opening scenes from the Deep Space Nine pilot, where you had father and son sitting together
on that bridge, and
they're fishing. Yeah. So I don't know if that was on purpose or if that was me just making a connection that was personal. My late father-in-law, when he was sick, he had always promised my son that they would go fishing one day. And he never got to because he was sick and died very quickly. And I remember that the owner of my son's day camp, they had a little pond with fish in it and little tiny rowboats. And they said, the owner said, why don't you come on a Saturday or Sunday with your father-in-law and son and just use the boat here and just fish. And my father-in-law said he just couldn't do it. And I think he was too sad to do it. I think at that point he still had the strength to do it. So that scene that we're talking about, he died after the Deep Space Nine scene and, before the Picard scene. So even now, if I bookend these the two episodes and what happened with my father-in-law, it literally carries even more resonance for me.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it's a nerve.
Yeah.
My fourth spot is an episode again, another episode that we've discussed.
It's an episode? Really? You picked an episode, not a movie?
A film?
Wow. Stop right there. That was a great choice.
Okay. Right. Rich, you're number 3. No, it's City on the Edge of Forever. I think what you were saying, Rich, earlier about when you saw this, I watched this episode now and teeters on the edge of melodrama, but I can't deny it still gets me, and I think that's because that's when I originally saw it. I think I was probably preteen. Interestingly, again, we've discussed this, I didn't see Edith Keeler as like a romantic interest. I saw her as a motherly character, and so it makes me think of like what would have happened, if my mum had been killed in that situation. And so I think that's how it has that impact on me. I think the whole denouement, he knows Doctor, he knows, and then Kirk's let's get the hell out of here. I cried a lot when I was younger.
Let's get the hell out of here.
I cried a lot when I was younger, and I think that's the resonance that has stuck with me.
Well, I think it's probably gained resonance, hasn't it? So if that's how you interpreted it, so absolutely, I can see that. Sadly, as we age, those sorts of things come back to us, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned that I don't really cry much. I have noticed the older I'm getting, more emotional impacts on things.
More to cry about, mate.
Yeah.
Great. Well,
the falling apart of our bodies.
Yeah, mate, I cry every day. Great.
That's just getting up in the morning.
Yep. Yeah, that's just navigating that, just opening my eyes. So my number 3 then. We all love City on the Edge of Forever, I should say. We all agree. It's not on my list, as I prefaced up top, because we've talked about it at length, and it can't be on every list. But it could be. It's going to be on Ian's every one of Ian's lists, I'm sure. So my number 3, though, talking of Ian, is an episode that I know Ian particularly likes. It's The Offspring.
So that was in my short list. if we were doing episodes, then
Which we are.
Yeah. This is the second episode in a row.
Yeah.
Wow, an episode. Khan is number one on your list.
Yeah, it is. If it's Khan,
gotta
then,
be.
you know.
I mean, yeah, it is.
Okay, fine. We'll come to that. So at the moment, we're talking about Data's child Lal and how beautifully. This was actually the first one which popped into my head. It isn't the one that's highest, but it is the one when we talked about Tearjerkers where I immediately thought of this. And Frakes so demonstrated his chops for directing his fellow actors. So we've had discussions about whether things are earned or not earned. That could have been the case here too. But there is a sense of a full, complete life, even in 44 minutes or whatever it was. And isn't it interesting though that Data, the one without emotions, was often the best vessel for us to project our own response?
That's what I was going
Well,
to say.
that's exactly.
that.
Toby, you're thinking the same thing I am. As much as I understand what you're saying about Lal, being the character that we get to know very briefly, the reason the episode works as strongly as it does for me is because of its impact on Data.
Yeah, absolutely.
And similarly, the episode in theory, that was one that I thought about, but it's the same thing. It's because of the impact on Data.
Yeah, and I think there's a few iterations of that in Next Gen, and this is the most successful because it's the most overtly primal in terms of the human experience, and they're higher stakes. It's sad when, in theory, that the relationship doesn't work, but in this case, he gains and loses a child. Arguably, it's a cliche, but there's arguably nothing more tragic for someone to lose a child. So it's also a triumph because the early effects, makeup effects, are a bit clunky, and yet you forget that very quickly because the performance by Hallie Todd is just so good, and it comes through. And we know, I mean, often Star Trek is a triumph for people coming through latex and giving great performance. And we talked about Paul Winfield and Darmok is a great example. A lesser actor with less expressive eyes might have suffered under that. And when you look at DS9, without fail, Armin Shimmerman, Mark Alaimo,
Renee.
Renee. Yeah, exactly. Perfect example. Where it could bury you, but it doesn't. And in this case, that development and that emergence and then loss is poignant. And that's what makes me cry. It's the poignancy of it. It's sad, but that isn't what evokes that emotion. It's that sense of completeness of the microcosm, and also the not acknowledging of the sort of where it fits in the storytelling structure of the series. Meaning, we've said already, as I already just said, which is that sometimes these single episodes don't really warrant genuine emotion, but when they're done well, they do. And in a way that the one about Data's mum later doesn't quite pull it off, this wholeheartedly succeeds. And yeah, it's a poignantly tragic, sad, and one of the best performances from Brent Spiner when he doesn't get to also do other characters.
Don't hate me, Rich, but I find it, we were talking about melodrama earlier, I find it a little bit melodramatic, the ending. I like the episode. I think it's a very good episode.
Finding Spot, death of Data's child. Oh, it's interesting.
It says a lot about me.
They have therapists for this kind of thing.
Yeah.
Cold-hearted bastard. All right, number 3 for me is a tie. Now, interestingly, I noticed this. No, seriously. The way I had the doc... You know what? Have some class.
You did that earlier.
The way I had the Doctor episodes kind of tied at the beginning, right, with Real Life and Elysian Kingdom. My number 3 is 2 episodes that really focus on aging and death and parents and the whole 9 yards, and it's and seeking and understanding. It's The Visitor and it's Sarek. And I really think
I can see
they
that.
are
I can see
thematically and emotionally connected.
Yeah, I can see the through line.
I'm not saying
Fair
enough. Cosmically.
No, you can have your tie.
So wait, you very reluctantly understand where I'm coming from here.
Yes, I do.
All right.
I have to say, I thought you were going to say The Inner Light there.
No, it's higher up. I think these 2 episodes are among the best of any Star Trek. Sarek, The Visitor was meant to break your heart. Sarek just came up and snuck up on you, breaking your heart, is the difference in the emotionality of these episodes for me. And again, Sarek was such a tough, stoic character. And for the emotion of a Vulcan displayed there, and the whole family element, and Picard's involvement in the story, totally among my favorite 2 episodes of both shows. Way up there. If you're doing favorite episodes, those 2 are high up there. If you're doing guest spots, way up there. If you're doing scripts, way up there if you're doing music. The scores for these episodes are fabulous. I see them very much alike, yet they come at earning their weepy tears in very different ways.
Okay. My third spot, I'm returning to Happy Tears, and it's the finale for The Next Generation, All Good Things.
Wow, I thought you were going to pick a Grudge episode from Discovery.
Yeah.
I would never pick an episode from Discovery, you know that, Ian. It's never going to make my list.
Oh, careful.
But wait, there's the episode where Michael Burnham cried.
Also, if we do ever go negative...
Which episode was that?
If we do ever go negative, you might regret that. Never say never.
Well, that's true. That's true. But we're a positive podcast at the moment.
We are,
so.
for now.
Yeah, no, it's the final scene around the poker table. We've discussed it before. I think the thing is, The Next Gen was my favourite show on the telly for, 7 years, as broken up as that was in terms of how it was released over here. But, and yes, I knew that at least one film was coming. It still felt like a goodbye to these characters for me, and that's the bit that impacts me. And I do. This is one of the ones where I do genuinely cry at the end, so I had to put it in.
I didn't cry. I remember thinking, "Oh, that's good."
The next time you cry, will you record it and send it to me?
I mean, yeah. Have you got a couple of years? Can you wait a couple of years?
Evidence, please. And
it's kind of like Pond Far for him.
Can you catch it in a little vial for
us? Right.
And then we'll frame it.
What, Harry Potter-esque?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, okay.
Yeah, we'll stick our faces in a font.
It's Toby's Pond Far. Every 7 years he'll cry.
What's the opposite of Pond Far?
Far Pond.
Far Pond. Toby's... I can't even say it.
That sounds vaguely rude.
Yeah, Far
Toby's
Pond.
Right.
Far Pond is active at the moment.
It rhymes with Far Gone, so I'm fine with that.
Indeed.
Number 2.
Yeah, my number 2 we've already talked about is Terror Prime. Nothing more to add. Great acting. Very sad. One of the handful of Enterprise moments which really stuck with me.
All right, then. My number 2, hey, guess what? I have a tie.
God.
Is The Offspring and The Inner Light.
Okay.
I think we've discussed these episodes.
A whole life in an episode.
Right?
Okay. All right.
Yeah, whole life in an episode. I think they're very similar, which, to be honest with you, if we're wearing a more critical hat as opposed to a more emotional hat is an issue. I think they hit similar beats, but they're wonderful, heartbreaking beats. So I'm fine with it. And they're different characters, obviously, that we're focusing on. But I loved Hallie Todd as Lal. I thought she was just unbelievably effective in the episode. And the range of Hallie Todd as an actress, going from that to playing Hilary Duff's mom on the Lizzie McGuire show, which I had to watch with my daughter endlessly years later, always fascinated me. And Hallie is a lovely human being. I've met her, I've sat and chatted with her, I've formally interviewed her. She's wonderful. So both episodes are beautifully shot, effectively told stories, good scripts, and very important, solid guest shots as well, and just really fill you in on the emotional lives of characters that we care about. I might slightly give the edge to The Offspring just because I think it illuminates a character that's not human and humanizes that character. But they're both in the same vein, and I think both brilliantly done. I just wish they were different shows. I would have liked The Inner Light for Janeway, for argument's sake, or one of the other characters. Would be really interesting to see The Inner Light done with each captain. How about an Inner Light for Lorca? You know what I mean? It would just be interesting.
Which Lorca?
This is a good point. Both Lorcas. It'll be a two-parter.
Double Lorca.
If I had ruled out the movies, The Inner Light would have been in my list for sure. It is.
I never found it sad.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
What could have been?
I think I find it wistful.
Yeah, wistful and poignant, but not sad.
Yeah.
And because it's too obvious that it's going to leave, and so I found myself wondering what's going on, and more than I was emotional. I found it eloquent, but not sad.
None of that reduces the tearjerker factor for me. I completely agree with both of your comments, but that's not a reason for it not to jerk tears for me.
Let's not say jerk tears, please.
Call tears
Let's all jerk out a tear.
Don't. God, no fun.
I think one of the things with
jerking tears.
One of the things with the Inner Light, which I find a little bit distracting from the story, is the stuff that's going on the Enterprise, where he gets drawn out. I kind of almost wish that wasn't in there and that we just stayed with him on the planet.
I think they were probably worried about people who joined after the cold open.
Yeah,
I think.
Maybe.
Logically. That's normally the sort of reason they have those touches, isn't it? So also to keep people paid.
Yes.
Well then.
My second spot, we've talked about it, is Lower Decks. So
Okay.
I don't really have much more to say than we've already discussed.
Brilliant.
Just I find it very, very emotional. And again, it's one of those ones where I genuinely cry at.
So my number one is Tears of the Prophets.
Yeah.
Death of
Do you know what? I
Jadzia
watched
Dax.
this last night. I have a lot to say on it.
Okay.
So
Is it your number one also?
No, of course not. You know what my number one is.
Yeah. We know how much we've come up many times.
Wait. Is it your number one episode, or if we skip the movie?
What?
No.
No.
No, it's not even close. And
No, it's not even-
that's
no,
You
why
just
I
said you had a
texted-
lot to say about it. I
Yeah.
just
I
thought.
think in the
did.
reverse.
Yeah, it's in the reverse. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. It's early in the morning for me, boys.
Yeah, that's right. I love Dax. I particularly love Terry Farrell as Jadzia Dax, and I really liked the Worf romance with them. As someone who was worried, I think I've said this before, about Worf coming over and then it would be shoehorned in, and it would be that the chemistry between Farrell and Dawn was really, really strong and really effective and brought out a playfulness in the character. And I don't know, and this is an important thing, I can't remember if I knew that Terry Farrell was leaving or not.
I don't think I knew.
I don't think I did. So I was shocked and upset and gutted. And I didn't know at that point as well, then, of course, that Ezri was going to come in. And so it sort of, whatever the episode is, whatever the behind-the-scenes reasons are, the actual thing, the event in the series was really, I was gutted about what happened, and was rarely as upset by the death of a character in anything, because I love Dax so much. Yeah, so I don't really have anything in terms of dissecting the episode, because it's not really even about that. It's just at that moment. And equally, if I were including the films, it's quite near how I felt during Khan, not in terms of the quality, but in terms of my reaction. And I remember being and it then made the Ezri thing more interesting, because they had to win me over with Ezri, as they did the people in the show. They had to with the people in the show as well, the characters. So in a weird way, you had a nice. Ultimately, it turned out a parallel in season 7. I do think ultimately that helps. That was good in season 7, as much as that pains me. But yeah, it just deeply upsetting for me. Love Dax. One of the few times I generally thought, oh, poor Worf, about a character. Yeah. And it was Golden Cat, for God's sake.
Yeah,
That would be in my top 10 if we had gone that far. So that'd be 8 or 9 or 10.
So I thought this would be in my list, which is why I rewatched it this week. And I thought it's not handled well at all. I had no emotional reaction to it at all. I can't remember how I reacted when I first saw it. Maybe I was more upset. But it just thought, like, when it happens, I was thinking, well, is she dead? Didn't really get that sense. That the whole episode is really action-packed, so it's kind of thrilling. So emotionally, it puts me in a different place. So again, it doesn't have the impact. I thought the shoehorning in of the let's get pregnant felt manipulative. I thought that the scene, you want to see Worf's reaction, and he does the big roar and a little speech, but then it cuts to Sisko talking over the coffin, and he makes a speech, and the speech it's a really weird choice, because it's about him. It's not about Jadzia at all. He's talking about, how am I going to reopen the wormhole and fight this war, and then the episode ends with him leaving the station. It's just really, really, really weird. I was actually sort of quite angry at the end of the episode, because I thought, gosh, they handled this really, really badly. So, yeah, it's not even close to my list. I thought it would be, but it really wasn't.
Interesting. I don't have a riposte exactly. I mean, I'm curious.
Yeah, it's one I didn't rewatch because I knew it wasn't going to be on my list, but now you've got me intrigued, because I do remember being affected by it at the time. It just isn't.
I did rewatch it, but I'd be curious to. I think maybe I was just thinking about that context of this rather than being analytical. I think I may rewatch it again after that. That's interesting. I mean, I'll stand by how upset I was.
Yeah, no. I think that's absolutely valid, and I agree with. I can see that, but
and the same with the Skin of Evil's on mine.
I was really, really surprised because I thought, oh, this is going to be really high up on my list, and then I watched this, and I watched Latent Image Voyager episode because I remember that being kind of quite emotional, and where the Doctor discovers that he's having his memory wiped by Janeway, as it turns out. And again, I found that distressing but not tear-inducing. Whereas this one, I was really surprised by how it impacted me.
But that's funny with Skin of Evil because it's anywhere on my list because I don't think we got to know Tasha enough.
Agreed.
We're talking 40 years later now where, hey, wow, she could have been a great character. But when that episode aired, we hardly knew her, which is why she wanted to leave the show. She had nothing to do. So the death of a character was sudden and it was effective as a plot device. But in terms of me being sad for what we never got to do with Tasha, at the time we didn't know that.
Yeah.
That was just an underdeveloped character that...
I feel more in Yesterday's Enterprise than I do in Skin of Evil.
Because it's so much later. Yeah.
I agree with that, but I don't find Yesterday's Enterprise sad.
No, same.
No, same. That's why it's not on my list either.
My list, yeah.
But it is interesting parallel that those two, both of these, where essentially the deaths are fit out of the blue.
Yep.
And so I think that's probably the difference. Is I didn't feel like I particularly knew anyone that well on Next Gen at that point. I would make the case. Some of the others were more fleshed out, but I don't know if it wasn't like we were talking about when Picard was taken at the end of season 3 by the Borg. We weren't at that point.
Right.
And so it was the handling of it overall and the suddenness of it, I think, that struck me. And so Equivalent, again, is here, and it's a character I loved. So, yeah, it was... obviously, we include the movies, the list changes.
Yeah. But we don't, do we?
No, we don't. So, Ian, you're number 1.
My number 1...
How many episodes is it?
Well, it's funny you said that. I took it off the list, and oddly enough, this was tied for number 1, but now it's not on my list, which is odd. Would have been Amok Time.
Oh, right.
Would have been my tie for number 1. That one always got me, but I realized...
Interesting.
It wasn't a tearjerker. It was just the development of Spock that I thought was really interesting and affecting. But tearjerker, not quite. So as I literally had it at number 2, and then I crossed it off my list, which leaves me at City on the Edge of Forever. I'm sorry. For me, this is still the greatest of every Star Trek episode, all, hundreds of episodes from across the franchise. Even if we're including the movies, I would go with a tie. Shocking, I know. Between the big scene in Wrath of Khan and the same type of emotional moment here, oddly enough, right? It's actually a very similar type of moment. City on the Edge of Forever, to me, remains the end-all and be-all of Star Trek emotional greatness, and I will die on that hill,
so good.
Much like Edith Keeler. And
was it a hill?
Molehill.
Was there an incline, a gradient on that road?
But I just think the episode holds up.
It does.
I think the emotional moment is earned within the context of the episode. I thought Joan Collins was just absolutely brilliant. I thought the chemistry between the 3 men was tremendous, and all 3 are affected by her death. And I just particularly loved the chemistry between her and Shatner in the episode. Then add in a really cool science fiction story, add in the Guardian of Forever, add in whatever, but those things didn't make me cry, of course. But just the episode overall is top to bottom, soup to nuts, just a great, touching, thoughtful, reflective, emotional episode. And I didn't feel manipulated. Yes, you could argue that Edith Keeler is almost too good to be true type of character, but I think that was the point of the episode. That kind of goodness in the world was going to affect the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the fewer, the one. Prime example of it.
Speaking of which,
I've never quite understood why Keeler's death prevents the Nazis from winning the war. That's the bit.
I don't think they'd reasoned it through to that extent. Not really.
That's the only bit that I think about quite a bit. Well, I mean, I love that episode.
Not sure that's the point, Tobes, really.
No. Agreed. But it's one of those ones where I go, what? How? What?
But oddly enough, it didn't take a huge leap for me to understand why.
Yeah, my number one, Wrath of Khan, of course, had to be. Talking about tears, this is the one that I ugly cry at. Funnily enough, it's not the death scene that gets me, it's the eulogy afterwards. And particularly when Kirk's voice breaks, it just hits me every single time. I think the death puts me in the frame of mind, the emotional state, and then it's that. And I can even forgive the bagpipes. It sort of feels fitting. Unfortunately, I have been to too many funerals in my life, and that's it also always resonates.
Well, Toby, I can guarantee you that if it is unfortunate enough that I ever attend your funeral, I will give a speech and I'll say, of all the souls I have encountered in my travels, his was the most
grumpy.
Heartless. I was wondering exactly what you were going to say. I'm definitely going before you, Rich, so you'll definitely be attending my funeral.
No, I don't want to be at anyone's funeral. So let's make some Harry Carey kamikaze pact.
So on that happy note...
Yeah, cheerful. Well, it's a cheerful. I would say, as I said, Steve, the listener who suggested this brilliant theme.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. His were The Offspring, Duet, and interestingly, Jetrel from Voyager. Which is not one that any of us... It's not on my list. It wouldn't have occurred to me. He says a powerful episode about forgiveness, which is true.
I might have to re-watch that one.
Yeah, indeed. Me
doesn't
too.
spring to mind.
Yeah, Duet, as we all know, is one of my favorite episodes of Star Trek, period. But it didn't break my heart. It made me sad, but that one it didn't jerk tears for me.
So thank you, Steve, for that theme. It was a fruitful, if weepy, experience for us all. Let us know what your favourite tearjerkers, in inverted commas, are on Star Trek. You can contact us via
Well, what
email.
makes you cry in Star Trek?
Well, yes, because that's what one of us did. So great. Let us know either on social media or email us. All the details are in the description. And other than that, we will see you next episode, Beyond the Final Frontier.
Peace, love, and logic, everybody.
Ta-ra a bit.
Thanks for listening to Beyond the Final Frontier, a Star Trek podcast with Rich Matthews, Ian Spelling and Toby Weidman. If you want to get in contact with us, you can email us on beyondffpod@gmail.com or check us out on social media. You can even join our Patreon at BFF Beyond the Final Frontier. Huge thanks go out to Alex Weidman for the brilliant original music. Please search Alex Weidman Composer on YouTube to hear the full fantastic theme and more. Also thanks goes to award-winning voiceover artist Cissy Jones for our excellent opening monologue. Find out more about her incredible work at cissyjones.com. And of course, last but not least, our brilliant artwork comes from the designer Russell Seal. Discover more of his work on behance.net/Russell Seal. Thanks again and see you next episode, Beyond the Final Frontier.